When the moon swallowed the last confession, it didn't just take secrets, it took a piece of my soul. I still wake up in a cold sweat, haunted by the memory of that night, the way the shadows danced and twisted around us, mocking our desperate pleas. Was I wrong for what I did, for letting fate, or something darker, take its course? Tell me, would you have done the same thing if you were staring into the abyss, knowing that one wrong move could shatter everything you held dear? It all began innocently enough, or so I thought. My name is Alara, and I grew up in a small, isolated town nestled deep within a valley, a place where whispers traveled faster than the wind and secrets were guarded fiercely. Our town, Oakhaven, was steeped in ancient folklore, particularly tales of the Moonstone, a massive, luminescent rock said to have fallen from the sky centuries ago. It sat atop the highest peak, visible from almost every window, a constant, eerie reminder of the magic and mystery that permeated our lives. They said on the night of the blood moon, the Moonstone glowed with an otherworldly red light, and that's when the veil between worlds thinned, allowing for truths to be revealed and hidden sins to be brought to light. Most people dismissed it as superstition, but deep down, a part of me always believed. I lived with my grandmother, a woman whose eyes held the wisdom of generations, and whose stories were as intricate and winding as the ancient oak trees that surrounded our home. She was a practitioner of the old ways, a healer, and a keeper of Oakhaven's history. My best friend, Liam, was the polar opposite, a pragmatic, jovial young man who laughed at the superstitions and preferred to spend his time tinkering with engines rather than listening to tales of spectral moons. Yet, despite our differences, we were inseparable, two halves of a peculiar whole. Our third companion was Silas, a quiet, brooding artist who had moved to Oakhaven a few years prior. He was an enigma, always sketching in his worn notebook, his gaze often fixed on the Moonstone, as if trying to capture its essence on paper. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words were profound, carrying a weight that belied his youthful appearance. Our lives, though simple, were content, until the arrival of the Alastair family. They were city folk, wealthy and refined, who bought the largest estate on the outskirts of Oakhaven. Mr. Alastair was a stern, ambitious businessman, his wife, Elinor, a delicate beauty who seemed perpetually lost in thought, and their daughter, Lyra, was a whirlwind of vibrant energy and captivating charm. Lyra was my age, and despite our differing backgrounds, we quickly became friends. She brought a spark to my otherwise quiet life, introducing me to fashion, music, and ideas I'd never encountered. Liam, of course, was instantly smitten, his usual cynicism melting away under her bright smile. Even Silas, who rarely acknowledged anyone, would occasionally steal glances at her, a rare flicker of emotion in his usually stoic eyes. As Lyra became more ingrained in our lives, a subtle shift began. Liam grew more distant, spending most of his free time with her. Silas, too, seemed to gravitate towards her, their shared love for art creating an unspoken bond. I, initially thrilled by our new dynamic, started to feel like an outsider, a forgotten accessory in their blossoming relationships. My grandmother, ever observant, noticed my quiet melancholy. "The Moonstone reveals all, child," she'd often say, her voice soft but firm. Even the truths we try to hide from ourselves. I brushed her off, convinced it was just my own insecurities speaking. Then came the whispers. Rumors started circulating about Mr. Alastair's business dealings, shady practices, unexplained disappearances of former partners. Oakhaven was a small town, and gossip spread like wildfire. But these weren't just idle rumors. There was a chilling undercurrent to them, a sense of fear that permeated the air whenever his name was mentioned. Liam, always quick to defend Lyra and her family, dismissed it as baseless jealousy. Silas remained silent, his gaze even more intense on the Moonstone during his late night sketching sessions. I, however, couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. My grandmother's stories of the Moonstone's power to reveal secrets began to feel less like folklore and more like prophecy. The tension escalated when a local farmer, Mr. Henderson, disappeared. He had been vocal about his opposition to Mr. Alastair's plans to buy up large tracts of land for a new development. The sheriff, a jovial but ultimately ineffectual man, conducted a brief investigation, but no trace of Mr. Henderson was found. The town was gripped by fear, and suddenly the whispers about the Alastairs turned into outright accusations. I confronted Liam, pleading with him to see the truth, to acknowledge the growing darkness surrounding Lyra's family. But he was blinded by his affection, unable or unwilling to believe anything negative about her. Our arguments grew more frequent, more heated, until one evening we had a bitter falling out. He accused me of being jealous, of trying to sabotage Lyra's happiness. My heart ached not just for the loss of our friendship, but for the realization that the Liam I knew was slowly fading away, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Silas, observing all this from his quiet corner, offered a cryptic warning. Some truths are best left undisturbed, Ilara, especially when the moon is full. Then the date of the blood moon was announced. It was a rare celestial event, one that hadn't occurred in Oakhaven for over 50 years. The entire town was buzzing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. My grandmother's warnings grew more urgent. The moonstone will glow red, Ilara. On that night, all will be laid bare. She instructed me to collect specific herbs, to prepare wards, to ensure our home was protected. I followed her instructions, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The night of the blood moon arrived, painting the sky in shades of deep crimson and inkai black. The air was thick with anticipation, a strange energy humming beneath the surface of Oakhaven. The moonstone, perched majestically on the mountain peak, began to pulse with a faint, reddish light, growing steadily brighter as the hours passed. It was mesmerizing, terrifying. Liam had invited Lyra to witness the spectacle from a secluded spot near the old mill, a place we used to frequent as children. I decided to follow them, a terrible premonition gnawing at me. Silas, surprisingly, appeared beside me as I was about to leave. "I'm coming with you," he stated, his voice devoid of its usual quietness, replaced by a steely determination. I didn't argue. We found them at the mill, bathed in the eerie red glow of the moonstone. They were talking, their voices low, but as we approached I heard Lyra's voice, laced with an undeniable tension. She was confessing something that sent shivers down my spine. She spoke of her father's ruthlessness, of his involvement in Mr. Henderson's disappearance, and of other darker secrets, whispered truths that confirmed all my worst fears. Liam stood there, his face a mask of shock and betrayal, the romantic ideal he had built around her crumbling before his eyes. As the moonstone reached its peak, glowing with an almost blinding crimson, Lyra's confession became clearer, more desperate. She wasn't just a victim of her father's actions. She was an accomplice, albeit a reluctant one, bound by fear and family loyalty. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have exposed the truth, knowing the fallout it would cause? Or would you have chosen to protect your friends, even if it meant burying a terrible secret? The revelation hit Liam like a physical blow. His face contorted in disbelief, then horror. The love and admiration he had for Lyra shattered into a million pieces. He confronted her, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and agony, demanding to know how she could have been involved, how she could have lied to him. Lyra, her face streaked with tears, begged for his understanding, for his forgiveness, claiming she was trapped, that her father had manipulated and threatened her. The scene was raw, heartbreaking, playing out under the ominous red glow of the moonstone. As Liam struggled to process the devastating truth, Silas, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. He held up his worn sketchbook, its pages filled with meticulous drawings of the Moonstone, but also, surprisingly, with intricate sketches of Mr. Alastair's estate, maps of hidden passages, and even depictions of Mr. Henderson's property. I knew. Silas said, his voice surprisingly strong, "I've been watching. I saw Mr. Alastair's men, the movements, the disappearances. I've been documenting it all." My jaw dropped. Silas, the quiet artist, had been an investigator, a silent witness to the unfolding darkness. He revealed that he had been compiling evidence, not just against Mr. Alastair, but also implicating Lyra in certain aspects of the cover-up. He had seen her helping her father, not always willingly, but involved nonetheless. Lyra's face turned from despair to a chilling fear. The moon, now at its most intense, seemed to amplify every unspoken thought, every hidden emotion. She saw the evidence in Silas's hand, the undeniable proof of her complicity. Panic seized her. In a desperate, split-second decision, driven by fear and the instinct to protect herself, Lyra lunged at Silas, trying to snatch the sketchbook. The movement was so sudden, so unexpected, that it caught everyone off guard. In the ensuing struggle, near the edge of the old mill, precariously close to the churning water below, a horrific accident occurred. Whether it was a slip, a push, or a combination of both, I couldn't say for sure, but Lyra lost her footing. There was a scream, a splash, and then silence. The Moonstone's light seemed to falter for a moment, as if holding its breath. Liam, paralyzed by shock and grief, stared at the spot where she had vanished. Silas stood frozen, his face pale, the sketchbook clutched in his trembling hand. I, too, was stunned, my mind struggling to comprehend the sudden, tragic turn of events. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rushing water of the mill. We looked at each other, three souls bound by a terrible secret and the crimson glow of the Moonstone. The questions hung in the air. What had just happened? Was it an accident? Could we have prevented it? And what were we going to do now? Silas, regaining his composure, looked at me, then at Liam. His gaze was firm, resolute. "We tell the truth," he said, his voice unwavering. "We take the evidence to the sheriff. We expose Alastair." Liam, still reeling, could only nod mutely. The image of Lyra's face, her desperation, her fear, was etched into my memory. We went to the sheriff, Silas presenting his meticulous notes and drawings, Liam confirming what he had heard Lyra confess. I corroborated their accounts, my voice shaking but firm. The sheriff, initially skeptical, couldn't ignore the overwhelming evidence, especially after a search of the mill area confirmed Lyra's body was indeed in the water. The investigation into Mr. Henderson's disappearance was reopened, and with Lyra's confession and Silas's evidence, Mr. Alastair was swiftly arrested. The scandal rocked Oakhaven to its core. The aftermath was a blur of police interviews, town gossip, and a pervasive sense of tragedy. Mr. Alastair's empire crumbled, his dark secrets brought into the harsh light of justice. Oakhaven, once a quiet, unassuming town, was forever changed. Liam was devastated, heartbroken by Lyra's betrayal and her tragic end. He slowly withdrew from us, from the town, eventually leaving Oakhaven altogether, seeking a fresh start somewhere far away from the shadows of the Moonstone. Silas, the quiet observer, became a reluctant hero. His bravery in documenting the truth, his unwavering commitment to justice, earned him the respect of the townspeople, but also a somberness that never truly left him. He continued his art, but his sketches now held a deeper, more melancholic quality. As for me, I learned a profound lesson about the deceptive nature of appearances, the fragility of trust, and the crushing weight of hidden truths. The Moonstone, on the next full moon, glowed with its usual soft silver light, as if washing away the crimson stain of that night. But for me the memory of its blood, red glow, swallowing Lyra's last confession, will forever be etched in my soul. It taught me that sometimes the most profound revelations come from the most unexpected places, and that justice, though often slow, eventually finds its way, illuminated by the unblinking eye of the cosmos. So that's the story, the raw, unvarnished truth of how the moon swallowed the last confession. It was a terrifying, heartbreaking experience that changed me forever. I still grapple with the question of whether I could have done anything differently, whether there was a path that didn't lead to such a tragic end. Like this video if you were on my side, if you believe we did what was necessary to bring justice to Oak Haven. Subscribe for more stories like this, where the line between right and wrong blurs, and the human heart is tested to its limits. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. What would you have done if you were there, staring into the crimson glow of the blood moon? I'll see you all in the next story.